We've said that we have 4 DNA elements of healthy Christian community at Christ Community Church: relationships, maturity, care, and encouragement. In this video, we're going to look at the DNA element of encouragement. Specifically, we want to see every community group in our church encouraging one another to serve and to live on mission for the kingdom of Jesus. Here are the key passages for this DNA element. John 13, 14, and 15. If I then, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example, that you also should do just as I have done to you. Matthew 28, 18 through 20. And Jesus came and said to them, All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always, to the end of the age. In Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. And let us consider how to stir up one another to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. 2 essential components of the Christian life are service and evangelism. In John 13, Jesus washes his disciples' feet, a humble, almost humiliating act of service for them, and then tells them that he expects them to follow that example to one another. Several hundred years later, the Roman Emperor Julian the Apostate, who was trying to re-paganize Rome as it was becoming Christian, complained that the Christians were popular because they provided care not only for their own people, but also for non-Christians too. So the willingness to serve was a core part of the early Christian witness, and it's supposed to be a core part of our lives as well. In Matthew 28, we see another core practice that set early Christians apart from other Romans. They evangelized, or they told others that there was a single authority over all of human life, and that all people were called to submit to that authority. Their service could seem humble, and their proclamation, the gospel, could seem incredibly arrogant, but they did both, and we're called to do the same. And in the Hebrews passage, we see that part of Christian community is encouraging one another to keep living into the mission of God, as well as into their relationship with God. We're to stir one another up to keep doing these things, to keep serving others, to keep building relationships with non-Christians, sharing the gospel, and inviting others to follow or at least learn more about King Jesus. I'll start by clarifying a few things about service and evangelism. First, both of these can be either spontaneous or planned. The Good Samaritan didn't plan to see a man beat up on the side of the road and left for dead. The need confronted him and he served. In the same way, the Apostle Philip didn't plan to get picked up by an Ethiopian eunuch reading the book of Isaiah, but when the Spirit prompted him, he started a conversation and talked about Jesus. So neither service nor evangelism should be limited to planned efforts. At the same time, just like my love for my wife leads me to plan things like dates and things like weekly planning meetings to work on our relationship intentionally, sometimes we need planned, intentional efforts to serve and to try to share the gospel with others. So when you help your group think about service and mission, you will probably talk about intentional efforts you're planning, but you can also celebrate and even prepare for spontaneous opportunities that arise. Second, sometimes service and evangelism will happen in connection with something our church does, and sometimes they won't. We have definite service needs in the church that we need people to fill, but so do your community or your school and your neighbors. Your serving energy may go somewhere other than inside the walls of our church, and that's okay. In the same way, evangelism might look like inviting someone to church or a Bible study that Christ Community leads, but it might also look like inviting a friend to come over and read the Bible together in your house, with no connection to a church program, and that's fine. A missiologist is a person who thinks about how to share the gospel effectively in a specific context. We want you and your group members to think like missiologists for your personal spheres of influence. And third, your group may serve or evangelize together, or you may primarily support one another in those things. If your group has a shared burden for tutoring or our health clinic or some other need, you may decide to volunteer together or arrange volunteers to meet the need. You might even use one of your meeting times to serve. And if your group feels comfortable, you might also have one of your group times or all of your group times open up to inviting non-Christians to join you as part of investigating Christianity. Or you might host an occasional social event just to invite non-Christian friends to meet people who happen to be Christians. One practical way to make these things part of your group conversations is to add them to your prayer and accountability time. Have people share about how they're serving and whom they're trying to share the gospel with. Pray for non-Christian friends and family members by name. These things are supposed to be just as much a part of our lives as Bible reading and prayer, so we can normalize them in our accountability. With evangelism in particular, you may want to dedicate a few meetings just to make sure your folks are equipped to share their faith. Ask people what fears or hesitations they have about evangelism. Practice sharing your testimony and sharing the gospel. Maybe even discuss some questions or challenges your members have faced and talk about how they would address those. Most Christians are more prepared to share the gospel than they think they are, but practicing in this way can give someone the confidence to take an opportunity they might otherwise let go by. And one last thing to consider, our missions committee would love to have community groups adopt a missions partner for prayer and encouragement, to pray for their requests, send them notes letting them know they're supported, and maybe occasionally send them a care package. If you're interested in doing that with your group or just talking more about it, let me know and I'll connect you with the missions team. Alright, that is the fourth of the DNA elements that we want to see growing in our community groups at CCC. Thanks for your leadership, and please let me know any way I can pray for or help you. God bless.